Once again, I'm encouraging people who are sitting in the back of the hall to move up front. And for your information, the barriers are left over from another meeting. There's no distinction. Let me welcome you to the second meeting of the Labor Council this week. I'm Stuart Applebaum. I'm the chair of the Labor Council, and my wonderful, delightful, amazing co-chair, Roxanne Brown from the United Steelworkers. And we're going to begin the way we always do at Democratic Party meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm asking Jessica Garcia from the RWDSU to lead us in the pledge, because Jessica Garcia and Jared Karbowski, standing to her left, worked so hard in putting these meetings together, and I want to thank them both. Jessica.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jared. You know, I know there've been a lot of amazing, wonderful moments already just in the 2 days of the convention. And I thought, I thought yesterday's speeches, especially by Michelle Obama and also by her husband, were amazing, were great. But I have to tell you, the thing that really excited me about this convention was on the first night when the hall was filled with signs that said, "Union Yes." And we should take a lot of pride in that, because it's because of the people in this room and the people you represent that the Democratic Party has become a stronger party for working people than it has ever been before. And we have to keep it that way, because, as I said on the first day, there is no Democratic Party without the American labor movement. And our values have to be the same. I'm going to call up Roxanne to introduce our first speaker. And as she comes up, I'd like to recognize one of our foreign guests who's here today, our brother from the Canadian Labor Congress, its Executive Vice President, Larry Russo.
Good afternoon, Labor! Is Labor in the house? Is Labor in the house? All right, we got to make sure they know. Is Labor in the house? All right. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker this afternoon. Sisters, brothers, and siblings, we all know that organizing is the lifeblood of the labor movement. And if we don't organize, we what? We die. And the only way the labor movement could ever hope to take on almost bottomless corporate power is by speaking for more and more workers. Our next speaker has brought that attitude to his role as president of the EE.UU. Is EE.UU in the house? He's made organizing a top priority and goal of the electrical workers, and he continues every day to fight for his lifelong goal of winning better lives for workers. Please welcome a man his friends and allies call Coop. IBEW President and my friend, Kenny Cooper.
Thank you, Roxy. Thank you so much. How y'all doing today? I said the crowd might be light because of the parties late last night, but they were good things, you know. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to hear the Obamas last night and their great speeches that they had. As Roxy said, I'm Kenny Cooper, representing the men and women of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. You know, this morning, I kind of want to take a walk back in time a little bit for a reason. I want to take you back to 2016 through 2020, during the time that Trump was in office. Not because I want to, but I think I have to. The biggest battle in my entire career as a union leader, I chaired the multi-employer Pension Plan Reform Committee for the AFL-CIO. Trump and his Congress offered $3 million, but they wanted the unions to come up with $4 million to help the pensioners that was having problems, to help the PBGC fund what they was supposed to fund all along. There was people in the AFL-CIO and the building trades that thought we should not pass up on the offer. But we quickly remind them that Congress did corporate bailouts, and that the 2.5 million people that had a chance of losing their pensions, people that went to work every day, played by the rules, deferred their own wage so they could retire with dignity and respect. They had done nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. Congress was offering their own money back to them, the pensioners, money that they had already paid in taxes and wanted us to raise even more. We reminded them over and over again that Congress and that president was able to find $142 billion to bail out Bank of America, $280 billion to bail out Citigroup, $25 billion to bail out the automobile industry, $180 billion to bail out AIG, $400 billion to bail out Freddie Mac, $30 billion to bail out Bears and Stearns, $18 billion to bail out the airline industry, $300 billion to bail out the savings and loans. They were able to bail out corporate America, but they couldn't find $7 billion to help union families. In other words, they wanted us to pay more for our benefits while getting less when we retire. So when we heard that, I had the same reaction as most of you in this room. Not no, but hell no. This was our money. These were our plans. And we weren't about to let anyone take them away from us. But you fast forward to the Biden-Harris administration. Kamala Harris cast a deciding vote for the Butch-Lewis Act, giving us $89 billion into the PBGC. And the PBGC just announced that they will be solvent for 4 decades now because of what has happened. 4 decades. There's a lot on the line this year in this election. The IBEW, like most of all of you, is tracking Project 2025 and other plans to strip workers from their rights by backtracking the many gains that we've gained with labor movement under the Biden and Harris administration. They don't want us to go back just a few steps, by the way. They would rather erase us and silence all workers. They want the rules rigged for corporate America. But everyone in this room knows better. We don't have to go back, and we won't go back. Unions are vital and more popular now than ever, thanks to the administration. And electing VP Harris and Governor Walz is how we stay on track. It's how we keep going for every working family out there that deserves a good wage, a good benefit, and retirement to look forward to. Thank each and every one of you. We have a long road ahead of us, but I'm confident with the work that we put in, we will and we can make a difference, and we will elect Kamala Harris as the next President of the United States of America. Thank you.
That was really well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. It's always good to see you. Oh, it's always good to see you.
Likewise. Well done.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Hoot. And thank you, IBEW. I'm so pleased to welcome our next speaker. Not yet? Uh-huh. We're getting organized. Were you introducing Kelly?
Yes, I can. Okay. All right, we keep it fluid. Is AFG in the house? All right. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our next powerful speaker. A strong union needs a strong leader. And under Everett Kelly's leadership of AFG, over 400,000 employees of the Department of Veterans Affairs, Social Security Administration, and TSA won strong new contracts last year. And through his frequent op-ed columns at The Hill, he has emerged as one of the labor movement's most eloquent messengers. Everett knows what it takes to build a strong union, and he knows what it takes to win. So please join me in welcoming a strong fighter for all working people, AFG President Everett Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. Good afternoon, labor. Brothers, sisters, siblings, it is good to be here. And I want to begin by thanking all of you for being here, for taking time from your families and, being here at this, just taking advantage of this opportunity to do what's right. How about that? That's what this is all about. It's just about doing what's right. Isn't that right? Thank you for your commitment and your democracy and our shared experiment in self-government. My name is Everett Kelly, and I am proud to be newly reelected to a third term as National President of the American Federation of Government Employees, representing over 750,000 federal and D.C. government workers. And the folk we represent are at AFGE and federal and D.C. government workers. We represent them, and we're proud to represent them. Now, Donald Trump and his cronies like to call our members the deep state. But the truth is that the workers we represent are regular Americans just like you and I. They are nurses serving our Veterans Administration, serving veterans across the country, across our nation. They are correctional officers, keeping our communities safe from violent criminals. They are food inspectors, making sure our meat is safe to eat. There are folk like from the FEMA who runs toward disaster when everyone else is running away. They run to help suffering Americans. They are asylum officers, helping refugees, seeking shelter and the promise of a better life. They are the people making sure our most valuable citizens get their Social Security check and get them on time. And over a quarter of them are veterans. of our armed forces. And they're wearing their second uniform in service to this country. AFG members are patriots. Their commitment to service is the best of America. It's what makes this country great. Each one of them swears an oath to our Constitution, not to any one political party, not to any one man. They serve you, the American people. But Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and folk behind Project 2025, they want to change that. They want to strip away our members' rights, bust our unions, and stack the government with political flunkies that's loyal to the law or the Constitution, but they're not loyal to the law or Constitution, but they are loyal to Donald Trump. Well, they tried that in his first term, and it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because AFGE stood in its way. Why? Because they ran into stiff resistance from our union and the rest of the labor movement, because we came together and we formed a concept what we call the power of we. And when we get together and we're doing things in sync, there's nothing that we cannot achieve. We partnered with concerned Americans all over the country to fight back. And in the first day of the administration, it was President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris that reversed these corrupt policies, and I'm glad about that. Vice President Harris even led a task force that helped expand union rights for federal workers. Vice President Harris has walked with us, stood for us, and fought for us. And we're here to stand with her, and together, through that power of we can get this done. What do you think, labor? Can we get this done? I believe it. I believe it because I've seen it. I've seen the amazing thing that we've gotten accomplished working together with the Biden-Harris administration the past 4 years. And I know that if we come together in these weeks between now and November, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. What do you say about that? Now let me be real with you for a second. FG members are looking at this election as a fight for their very own existence. You know, if Trump and the folk who wrote Project 2025 win power, they'll try to destroy our union. We know that. They tried it before. But this is what they don't understand. We are not going back. Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say it. Say, we are not going back. But we are not here to surrender. That's not in our DNA, right? We are who? We are labor. And it's not in our DNA to surrender. We are here to fight. We're here to rise. And we are here to what? We're here to win. And I'm calling on you, brothers and sisters, through the power of we to get with us. If we believe in freedom, let's stand together. If we believe in democracy, let's stand together. If we believe in justice, let's do what? Let's stand together. If we believe in progress, what we going to do? If we believe that we can get this job done, we're going to stand together through the power of we. Let me hear you say we. We will get this done. I had a friend a few years ago around 2008 said, we can. Yes, we can. And I developed that into a concept, and now I say it's the power of we. Say we. We will. We will. We will elect Kamala Harris. We'll make sure she's the first black female president of these United States of America. What do you say? What do you say? Can we do this? Will we do this? Through the power of what? We. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you, sis. Love you.
That was powerful. And now we're going to hear from another powerful speaker. And I'm so pleased to welcome Bernie Sanders. His presidential campaigns and his sharp focus. Can I introduce you first? Bernie's presidential campaigns and his sharp focus on income inequality redefined how we talk about the economic issues that impact workers most. His voice and leadership have engaged a new generation of voters who feel his passion and believe in his vision of a more economically just nation. Senator Sanders is one of the most effective allies working people have ever had in government. And he has been unflinching in taking on union-busting corporations like Amazon. When my union took on Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama, a fight that continues to this day, Senator Sanders was one of the first to voice his support, and we'll never forget that, like all of us will never forget what he's done on behalf of working people in this country. He is one of the most recognizable champions of working people we have today. Please join me in welcoming United States Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is an honor to be with you, and thanks so much, Stuart, for that introduction. And let me just thank all of you for the work you do every day. I'm not going to tell you what you already know, what you're going to hear at the convention, what you're hearing today. Everybody knows that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy, to what this country stands for. In the next 2.5 months, we've got to do everything we can to elect Kamala Harris as our next president. We all know that. But the point that I want to make, and we all know that this is the most important election in our lifetimes for so many reasons, but the point that I want to make that sometimes gets lost in the chatter is I want everybody to remember that you are living in the wealthiest country not only on earth, but in the history of the world. Okay? And at the same time, as you're living in this extraordinarily wealthy country, you're also living in a nation at this moment which has more income and wealth inequality than it has ever had in our history. The people on top now are doing better than ever. The status quo is working extraordinarily well for them. You got 3 people on top own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got CEOs making almost 350 times more than what their workers are making. Over the last 50 years, because of disastrous trade policies and other policies, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth that's gone from working people to the top 1%. And here is a fact that almost nobody talks about. Despite the huge explosions that we have seen in technology and worker productivity over the last 50 years, such that everybody here produces a lot more than somebody did 50 years ago. You know what? Real inflation accounted for wages today are lower than they were 50 years ago. And that is why all over this country people are angry and they're frustrated. We're seeing a decline in our life expectancy. Diseases of despair, people worried about their kids. So the main point that I want to make to you is we in the trade union movement, we are taking on not only the bosses, We're taking on a culture, an environment which says you are powerless. Ain't nothing you can do. We on top, we run it. We own the media. We will determine what you think you're supposed to think is important. And not only do we control the economy with more concentration of ownership than we've ever seen in every sector of this country. You got a handful of large corporations controlling it. That is why, by the way, one of Biden's best picks was Lena Khan at the head of the FTC. And we got to make sure that she stays in that position. But the other mythology that's out there is they say all of these people, you, me, Stewart, all of our demands are far left demands, just outrageous demands. We believe that health care is a human right. Whoa! I mean, how crazy can you get? It only exists in every other major country on earth. But in America, oh my God, who are these radical communists who think that health care is a human right? We think, are you ready for this one? I know this is tough. We should raise the minimum wage above $7.25 an hour. I mean, how crazy can you get? Maybe we think that we should punish CEOs who make it difficult for workers to exercise their constitutional right and form a union. Oh my God! Growing the union movement. Wow, terrible far left stuff. And in a competitive global economy, when we want to be competing successfully as a nation, we kind of believe that from childcare to graduate school, all of our kids, regardless of their income, should be able to get the education they need, not leave school in debt. And you want to hear another radical extremist idea? Then maybe we should take action to make sure that the planet that our kids and grandchildren inherit is livable. You know, we did a poll, and one of the things that, again, we are up against, and you please never, ever forget it, our demands are what the vast majority of the American people believe. You know, it's not a few union leaders sitting in a room coming up with some wild and crazy ideas. We did some polling recently, just to give you an example, and we did it to basically tell the world that our demands are not radical. We said to the American people, do you think we should raise taxes on the rich and large corporations? Over 70%, including a majority of Republicans, said yes. Should we expand Social Security benefits by lifting the cap on taxable income? We could raise Social Security benefits by $2,400 a year and make Social Security solvent for another 75 years. Over 70% of the American people, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. We asked another question. We said, and it's not just protecting Social Security, no, it's expanding Social Security. And then we asked on Medicare. We said, okay, Medicare is good, it works well, but it doesn't cover dental, hearing, and vision. Do you think we should cover dental, hearing, and vision? 70% of the American people said yes. My point on all of these things is our demands are the demands of the American people. And the question that I want everybody to think about, Stuart, you and everybody else of it, Roxanne, everybody. And it's a hard question. It's one we're not comfortable with. When you got a phony and a fraud billionaire like Donald Trump, why is it? Now here is the hard question, and don't slough it off. How come a majority of working class people are supporting him? What's going on? What are the failures of the Democratic Party that has allowed that to happen? What are we not doing so that working people would support a fraud and a phony and an anti-union, anti-worker person like Trump? And I think the answer is that a lot of people are hurting. 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up, many of you grew up, my wife grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. That was what shaped my political views. And that's going on all over this country. People are working at starvation wages. They're worried about their kids. They can't afford housing. They can't afford health care. And they're looking at Washington and they say, do you know that I'm alive? Does anyone give a damn about me? And too often the answer is no. So we got a simple, not simple, it's hard, but it's important. We have got to beat Trump. We have got to elect Kamala Harris and Ted Walz. But the day after, what we have got to do is mobilize, increase membership in the trade union movement, bring the unions together, because the union demands are America's workers' demands. We've got to do all of that stuff and put pressure on Washington to create the kind of government that actually responds to the needs of working people, the majority, and not just the damn CEOs and all of their campaign contributions. Now tonight, some of you will be at the convention, and I want you to look up at some of the big boxes up there and know that those boxes cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions of dollars, I don't know what they get, paid for by the largest corporations in America. They're investing in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. They don't care who wins, all right? And they represent the 1%. So our job is to mobilize our people, because we represent the 99%. Let's go forward. Let's create the nation we know we can become. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Hilda. We'd love to see you.
Okay, you got it. Do it.
Is AFSCME in the House? Because the next speaker is also from AFSCME. And we know that when workers stand together, we have a powerful voice that can't be ignored. And nobody understands that more than our next speaker. As the president of the 1.6 million member AFSCME, Lee Saunders, has helped countless working families create better lives. And he's built AFSCME into one of the most politically active unions in the movement. During the entire Trump administration, he and his union never tired in fighting back against Trump's anti-worker attacks and policies. And like the rest of us, he knows that we are not going back. We are never going back. Please welcome our friend, our ally, the president of AFSCME, Lee Saunders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let me ask you a question, Union family. Are you fired up? Yeah. I didn't hear you. Are you fired up? Yeah. We're going to win this. Make no mistake about it. There's my good brother, Lonnie Stevenson there. Good seeing you, man. Good seeing you. I got to tell you, and I don't know about you, but I've been enjoying this convention from the start. Now we're a little bit past the middle and to the end. And I've been enjoying it because of the energy that you feel every single day, the energy that exists with the delegates of the DNC. That energy exists because we see a way to kick Donald Trump's ass in November. There is a way.
There is a path. And we're going to do that. Now, I don't have to tell you what Kamala has done for all of us in her history, what she did in California, being the Attorney General, supporting working families, as Vice President, walking with the strongest and best president that unions have ever had, and that is Joe Biden. Make no mistake about it. But she was a part of that team. And we know the successes that we've had, meaning working families and unions, because of the commitment and the work that they do every single day. They believe in us. They believe in unions. They believe that workers must have a seat at the table to determine wages, benefits, working conditions, safety and health issues. They know that workers have to have that seat at the table. And we know that there are folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. It's no joke. You look at Project 2025. Now, I come from a union representing 1.4 million proud, everyday hero public service workers across this country. And in that 920-page document, it is clearly spelled out that they want to take away all of the rights that public service workers have right now. They want to take their union away from them. They want us to be invisible so they can tell us what to do every single day with no right and no privileges. It's in black and white. It's in black and white in that program, Project 2025. They want to take away the advances that we've made in health care and lowering prescription drug costs. They want to do away with the Head Start program where so many families rely upon helping their kids. And we represent Head Start employees, so we would lose those members as well. Let me tell you something. We represent private and public sector unions all in this audience. There is something bad and terrible in every piece of Project 2025 that will impact on all of us and impact on our unions and impact on working families. And I've got to tell you, we're making a stand. And we're saying, hell no, it's not going to happen. And we're going to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be president and vice president. We're going to do that, right? We're going to do that together, right? Now, I'm the chair of the political committee of the AFL-CIO. And based upon the work that all of us collectively have been doing on that committee, we've changed substantially our program. With the help of the committee members, we have changed the program to reflect the fact that we've got to engage more with our members and with our communities. And we not only have to engage, but we have to kind of step back sometimes and listen to what they have to say. Listen. And then we communicate with them. And it is up to us to establish that kind of relationship, whether you're knocking on doors or whether you're going to work sites talking to members, going to community meetings. We've got to make sure that everybody understands what is truly at stake in this election. Now, I got to tell you, I think this is a great team. We had our convention in Los Angeles last week, AFSCME. We had 4,000 delegates there. 4,000. And you know who came? His first public appearance by himself. My good friend, my good buddy who has stood up for working families in Minnesota, Tim Walz, was there. Tim Walz was there. And I can speak personally about Tim because I know him very well. He is one of us. He's a school teacher, a union member, a coach. He believes in supporting working families, not tearing them down. It's in his heart. It's in his soul. Just as is in Kamala Harris's heart and soul. So this is an unbelievable team. But let me tell you, we've got to leave this place. We've got to leave Chicago on Friday. And we've got to roll up our sleeves, and we've got to be committed to working the ground every single day. If we do that, we will win. We will win. But that's what we do, isn't it? And that's what we do best. Now I want to end this note with a personal story. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Anybody here from Cleveland? All right. Born and raised in Cleveland. My dad was a proud member of the Amalgamated Transit Union. He was a steward, city bus driver in Cleveland. My mom was a community activist back in the day. This was in the 60s. She would participate in demonstrations and strikes and rallies. So this just didn't happen with me overnight. Unions and community activism, that's in my blood because of my parents and what they taught me every single day. Now, I just talked to my mother this morning. She now lives right outside of Washington, D.C., not too far from me. She was involved in the civil rights movement. She was involved in making education a quality education for students of color in Cleveland, Ohio. Mom is 98 years old now. And I had a discussion with her, and she knows I'm here. I've been talking to her every day. And I will tell you this, because of her activism, because of what she has experienced in her life, the fact that we had to fight for voting rights and civil rights in the African American community, because of her experiences, she is so excited about this election. And I am telling you this, come November, my mother, Jackie Saunders, is proudly voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Wells. And we've got to do the same thing. We've got to do the same thing. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to make your voices heard? Are you ready to fight like hell? Are you ready to kick some ass? Let's do it for the Harris-Walz ticket. Thank you very much.
We have many friends in this room who have supported us through the years, who have worked with us. And I'm really proud to say that one of those friends served in the Obama administration as Secretary of Labor. And I'd like you to join me in welcoming the former Secretary of Labor of the United States, Hilda Solis.
Woo! Hey, is labor in the house? I can't hear you. Where's California labor? Come on. We're going to deliver for our next president, right? And our president, Kamala Harris, brought to you by California. Don't forget that. Hilda Solis, brought to you by California. Your acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Sue, from California. We must be doing something right. And why? Because we care about labor. The daughter of immigrants, my father was a shop steward with the Teamsters. Mother was United Rubber Worker until they consolidated and went with the steel, United Steel Workers. We come from a labor household. And let me tell you, last night was so inspiring to hear Michelle and Barack Obama really talk about uplifting all of us, workers, families, seniors, Affordable Care Act, and expanding on bringing everybody in, the diversity of our country, especially in the workforce. Let me tell you, we can make change happen. And I'm so happy that Biden and Harris did so much for us on infrastructure. I can't tell you how many construction jobs were created in my state and in my county of Los Angeles on the rail industry. Talk about even digital divide in communities that didn't have Wi-Fi, and kids had to go to McDonald's during COVID just to get Wi-Fi because they couldn't do their studies. Those things are changing. And now we need to do it 2.5 and make sure that this new administration that's coming in has all the tools ready to go, that we continue to support the Congress, the Senate, make sure we keep that, and then we have all the levers, and then we lift everybody up, leave nobody behind. We cannot afford to go backwards. We got to go forward. We got to make sure that labor, all of labor, because I know my own folks where I live, sometimes they're thinking, well, wait a minute, things aren't going the way I think they are. You need to educate them. Educate them. We cannot go backwards. So please help us do the job, get it done. Labor is always there for us in our communities. You are the civil rights movement. You are helping to build back the middle class, and you have helped so many of us in our lifetime. Let's give it back where it belongs, in our neighborhoods, in our community. Keep the fight, and love you all. Muchas gracias, and sí se puede. Woo! All right, Stuart. Good to see you, my dear. Okay. You too. Thank you.
Our next speaker is coming in her personal capacity. Because of federal laws, there are certain things I'm not allowed to say, but I am allowed to say that she's here in her personal capacity. And I'm really delighted to introduce our next speaker, the Honorable EE.UU. But I can't tell you what she does for a living. A distinguished expert in workers and civil rights, Sue has dedicated her career to advancing justice for marginalized and underserved communities. She is a recipient of the MacArthur Foundation's Genius Grant, and they chose well. And her body of work clearly demonstrates how worthy she is of that recognition. As litigation director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Los Angeles, EE.UU shepherded groundbreaking work representing garment workers, trafficked and exploited in the United States, which found both the manufacturers and operators accountable for wage theft. That advocacy led to the creation of the T-Visa program for immigrant victims of human trafficking. When she moved into government, she brought the same ferocity and creativity to her work. She made significant strides as California's labor commissioner, achieving record-settling enforcement results on behalf of low-wage workers. Her achievements, she is truly inspiring. And we're so thrilled to be able to welcome to this meeting of the Labor Council today here in Chicago, EE.UU.
Oh my gosh! Labor in the house, how are you feeling? Woo!
Fired up and ready to go. It is so great to be with all of you. Stuart, thank you so much for being a beloved friend, for your ferocity in every field. In my personal capacity, I love you. And it's just so wonderful to be here in my personal capacity. You know I love you, Rox. And I am so excited to be here with all of you. So let me just say a few things. The first thing is California in the house? I know. So many of us have known our future President of the United States for some time, because we got to work alongside her. And I got to work alongside her when I was the California Labor Commissioner, doing everything we could to fight wage theft and make sure that the most vulnerable workers in our communities knew that government was on their side. And Kamala Harris was the Attorney General at that time, who reached out to me and said, hey, let's do that together. Let's fight together. And it's just such a sign of who she is and how she works that she seeks partners, she seeks collaboration, and she knows that the most important thing the government can do is make sure that we're fighting for working people. That's who she's been, that's who she was as the U.S. Senator, and who she's been as our Vice President, and who she will be as the next President of the United States. So it's very exciting to be in this space with all of you, to know that we have an opportunity to elect our sister to the highest office in the land. I just also want to say that a lot of times in elections, you know who the incumbent, you know who the Democratic nominee is, someone that we know, right? She's been the vice president. And you often have another candidate and you don't know exactly what that person's going to do, right? You kind of hear what they say, but you don't really know. This time we know exactly what the other guy is going to do. We know because we've seen it. We've lived through it, we've endured it, and he continues to double down on it, right? We know, and we know that we're not going back. And I just want to say that ticket's attempts to try to paint themselves as being on the side of workers, let's just be very clear. You can't be against overtime protections for working people and be pro-worker, right? You cannot be anti-immigrant and pro-worker. You cannot be pro-sexual harassment and pro-worker. You cannot be against voting rights and be pro-worker. Right? We all know that what working people do in unions is the biggest exercise of democracy, what it means to vote, what it means to choose, and what it means to work for the common good of anything, right? And we know that you cannot be pro-Elon Musk and pro-worker. And you definitely cannot be anti-union and pro-worker. So we know who's pro-worker and who isn't. And we know that we have a chance in November to elect and to continue with the most pro-worker, pro-union administration that we've ever had in this country, and this president and our new vice president, Walz, is going to bring that to us, and we deserve it, and we're going to make it happen. You all are going to make it happen, because the way it happens is not because of commercials and advertisements, although those are important too. It's not because of polls. It doesn't happen because of even conventions like these, as much fun as we get to have, and we are definitely throwing a party here. It happens because people that other people trust come and talk to them and say, this is why this election matters, this is why you need to vote, and let me make a plan for you to vote. And the people in this room, I'm in too, right? I mean, I'm not going to ever do anything that ask anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. But for the next 11 weeks or so, this is the most important thing that we can do. So all of us, let's continue the good work on behalf of working people. Let's show them exactly what it means to have a pro-worker administration by electing President Harris and Vice President Walz, and we are going to get this done all together, labor, and it's going to be great. So we got 11 weeks, and then we're going to have at least 4 more years to really show what it means to build an economy and a country where working people do well. So thank you all so much. Let's get this done. I know we can do it together. Thank you. Thank you. Love you. That's good.
Amen. So awesome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, is Michigan in the house? Woo! All right, our next speaker really needs no introduction to any of us in this room, and I don't even have to look at this paper to introduce her because she has stood with us in so many fights over the years, whether it's organizing or fair trade or health care. She has been in it with every single one of us. Please welcome Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. And hello, Michigan. I love you all. You know, I'm going to be probably just a little different than some of the other speakers. Because as you know, I'm kind of known for telling it as it is. And there is, without question, a new excitement in the air. There is more energy. There is more enthusiasm. When we're doing the kickoffs at the doors on weekends for door knocking and phone calls, getting a ton of volunteers. People are showing up. But my brothers and sisters, I'm also in the union halls. I'm talking to your co-workers, and we got a problem. We've got a lot of endorsements up here, and we got to get into the halls and tell the story. We got to tell them what's at stake. Too many people do not know what's at stake. And by the way, too many people don't know what has been done by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. How many jobs have been created? How pensions have been saved and protected? How benefits are there? How a whole hell of a lot of things have been done they don't get an ounce of credit for. Then I tell you a story. I love Michigan, and we have a lot of different unions come to Washtenaw County Community College and do apprenticeships in the summer. EE.UU, I probably just shouldn't have named but I told the story earlier, so you'll forgive me, was having its big block party. And I always go, because I want to welcome everybody to Michigan, and I stop at a table, and and I say, where are you all from? They go, Wisconsin, and I go, we got to win Wisconsin. Are we going to win Wisconsin, by the way? And then I go to, there's about 8, 10 guys sitting there drinking their beer, and I say, hi, I'm Debbie from, I represent this area. Where are you all from? They said, Arizona. And I said, we got to win Arizona. And they said, who has to win Arizona? And they were not on my page. And I had one of the most intense conversations I've ever had in my life. I was also later that night with the bricklayers and the painters and the building trades. And I said, those workers were redder than any brick the bricklayers had ever laid. But I stayed and I talked to them, although I will say some people tell me there's some people's minds that you can't change. But when I go in my UAW halls. UAW's in the house, I've seen them. God bless you. Donald Trump likes to pit people against each other. I'm going to tell the truth here. And he in 2016, I warned people that Donald Trump could win, and nobody believed me. Everybody rolled their eyes. There's Debbie Downer. But I was in those halls. And Donald Trump understood that anxiety of workers who had seen their jobs shipped overseas. NAFTA was bad trade policy, and we got to have good trade policy, and Democrats have to lead the charge on that and making sure we are competitive in a global marketplace and those jobs are staying here in the United States, and we're bringing those jobs home. We got to do that. And China can't be allowed to build plants in Mexico and then bring them into the U.S. Absolutely not. We cannot have trade policy, and Democrats have to be out there telling the story. But Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he didn't keep. And anybody who doesn't understand who he is, I want you to look at his good friend, Elon Musk, who he is saying he, not saying he wouldn't put in his cabinet as his advisor. Okay, he wants to take the plants that he's got here that are non-union labor. Never, ever, ever forget that. And take those to China. And then, when interviewing the president last week on X, Donald Trump said anybody on a strike line should be fired immediately. That is the real Donald Trump. People do not understand. How many of you have heard of the Butch-Lewis Act? You know what it did. I have a lot of those pensioners that were in my district. I was one of the, I worked hard to get Butch-Lewis passed. Donald Trump wouldn't hear it, wouldn't listen to it. I had retirees crying in my arms. They didn't know how they were going to live. Butch was sick. Butch died. He was scared to death about what was going to happen to Rita. Donald Trump wouldn't listen, wouldn't help, and wouldn't do a damn thing to help on those pensions. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris got into office. We got the IRA passed, and we got the Butch-Lewis Pact inside that bill. I'm begging you, my brothers and sisters, go home. Go into your workplaces. Go into your halls. Talk to your brothers and sisters. Tell them what the real truth is. We'll make sure you got all the facts, but you really have to help educate. Not enough people know what the IRA did or what the bipartisan infrastructure bill did or how many jobs it created or how prevailing wage is now there and that we're not letting people screw unions. Excuse my language, but those who know me know. We need you. So I am always honored to be here with all of you, but the people in this room and your organizations and your brothers and sisters can be the difference between winning and losing in November. I'm not on a sugar high. Michigan's still purple. This race is going to be tough. They're going to sling the mud. They're going to tell lies. Hey, I was at the rally in Detroit where there were more than 15,000 people that I saw every one of them. I was there. He called it AI. That's what the fall's going to be like. They're going to throw out their hate. They're going to try to divide us. Don't let them divide us. Unions must be united. We all must be united. United we stand, divided we fall. Let's go out and fight for a future of a healthy unions and working men and women being paid a decent wage, being paid benefits, working in a safe workplace, and their jobs staying here and bringing them home. That's what's at stake. That's why I need you to go out and please tell the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Are you ready to hear from an amazing individual, an amazing speaker? Because we are about to. My friend Jamie Harrison has the incredibly challenging and often thankless role of being the chair of the DNC, a job that even cat herders look at with pity. But Jamie's up to the task as he leads efforts to build and advance the Democratic Party's strategy and electoral success. He's made history before. He was the first black chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and the entire nation followed his incredibly exciting campaign for the United States Senate from South Carolina in 2020. His leadership has demonstrated his commitment to expanding the Democratic base and voter engagement. He has prioritized grassroots organizing and innovative outreach strategies to build a more inclusive and active voter base. He's investing in state and local party organizations to strengthen the party's infrastructure to activate more voters. And he's advancing efforts to engage younger voters and minority communities, the results of which we've been seeing during this convention. In short, he's making a difference where we need it and when we need it the most. Please join me in welcoming the chair of the Democratic National Committee, our friend Jamie Harrison.
What's going on, Democrats? Well, as you can hear, I've been partying a little too much. I want to first and foremost say to Stuart and say to Roxanne how amazing they are in terms of leadership of this council. And it's a great time to be the leaders of the Labor Council at the DNC when you have the most pro-labor president and vice president in the history of this country. When I think about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and what they have done, how they have stood side by side with labor, folks, it's not just lip service. The very first thing that this administration did was pass the American Rescue Plan. And yes, in the American Rescue Plan, we put shots in people's arms. We put money back in people's pockets. We opened up our schools. We made sure that the emergency officials had all of the resources necessary. But there was something else that was done there, and Stuart knows it all too well. The pensions of a number of union workers were on the bubble. And the question is, will they be saved? And this president and his vice president said, yes, we can. And yes, we will. And they saved the pensions of union members. This Biden-Harris administration has built the most pro-union environment, and that environment has spurred a new wave in unionizations, and it's bolstered existing union rights. You know, I grew up in South Carolina. But my grandparents raised me. And the one thing that they often told me is not what you say, is but what you do. It's not what you say, but what you do. You don't have to take my words in terms of whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have stood side by side with unions. Take a look at the actions they've done over the last 3.5 years. What president, what vice president have done more in order to grow unions in this country than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Every single time they get up and they talk about the creation of jobs, they don't just talk about jobs, they say good paying union jobs. They're never going to forget you because they always talk about you. You are always front and center when they think about it. When the UAW went, this was the first president ever in the history of this country to go on strike with the union members. Get on the picket lines. And then what did Donald Trump do? You know, I think Shawn Fain said it so well the other night. He was so good. Donald Trump's a scab. Worse than a scab. This is a man who talks out of all sides of his mouth, and the one thing we do know is he doesn't support union workers. He doesn't support unions because he's told you what he will do if you went out on strike. He said you're going to lose your job. He's going to fire you. Well, we've already fired him one damn time. And we ain't letting his ass back in again. When we learn that mistake once, we won't make that mistake twice. But Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done so much, and I'm looking for the next phase of what this happens. the administration of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because both of them understand Kamala Harris, who is our MVP, and Tim Walz, who is our coach. And we all know on a good team, and we are Team Hope and Joy, and Team Hope and Joy, unions are paramount. Unions are part of the heartbeat and the soul of that team. But on any good team that wins a championship, you got to have some role players. And guess who the role players are? You all, the brothers and sisters in the union. And we have a role to play in order to win that championship on November 5th. Debbie Dingell told you all, you got to go into those union halls, and we have to educate people about what is at stake in this election. What is at stake? Your livelihood is at stake. Your good paying union jobs are at stake. Your freedoms are at stake. Your rights are at stake. And we can't just sit around and say, well, maybe somebody else will do something. Michelle Obama told us about that last night. We have to be the change that we want to be. We have to do something. And nobody should have to ask us in order to protect our freedoms, in order to protect our rights, in order to protect our jobs and our livelihoods. We understand what's at stake. So I need y'all to play your role. Be that good role player on the team. Go out, knock on doors. Go out, register more voters. Go out and educate the folks in your communities, on your jobs. And then, my friends, we'll do what we got to do on November 5th. We will make the history that we know we can make. You know, the other side is a party built around fear. They want to make you afraid of everything, afraid to even get out of your own damn house. But we, my friends, we're a party of hope, part of hope and joy. They think our better days are behind us. They talk about making America great again, like America's greatness is anchored in her past. But we, this Democratic Party, is a future-thinking party, a future-loving party. We know that our better days aren't behind us, but our better days are ahead of us. And I've been painting this picture, Stuart, for every single caucus and council that I've talked to over the course of the last few days as we've celebrated together our family reunion here. Being a future-thinking party, and I'm going to close on this. I want to give you a little glimpse of the future. January 20, 2025, in Washington, D.C., on a cold and brisk day, on the steps of the United States Capitol. Capitol built not by union labor, but slave labor. Slave hands. Standing on those steps will be a black woman draped in black. Goes by the name of Justice. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. And Justice Jackson will be holding something. It'll be the Bible of Frederick Douglass. And this woman will step out, boldly step out. She might be wearing white, but she may be wearing a tan suit too. And she will step up to that stage, and she will put her hand on that Bible. This woman, a woman of black and Asian descent. And she will lift up her hand. And she will take that oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of these United States. And folks, that history of redemption, that history of fighting for all of us, understanding that the American dream isn't just for a select few, but the American dream should be for everybody, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless of your background, who you love, how you love, who you pray to. That is what this party fights for each and every day. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are joyful warriors, and they need us right now. They need us to have their backs because, by God, they have always had ours. So the question, my friends in the labor movement, are you ready? Are you ready? Because you know, if you are ready, you know we have to fight. And when we fight, we win. Thank you all so much for what you do each and every day. Let's make history. Let's win this thing.
Our next speaker has been a labor and civil rights activist her entire life, growing up on picket lines and at union rallies. Through her work with the Obama and Biden administration, she helped expand outreach to Latino, LGBTQ+, veteran, Asian American, and Pacific Islander and Muslim communities. She brings her experience in political and labor activism with her into her role as the campaign manager for Kamala Harris, Tim Walz's 2024 campaign. And I have to tell you, she does this in the spirit of her mother, who was a labor activist, Helen Fabela Chavez, and her grandfather, Cesar Chavez. And we're so proud to have her with us today. Please welcome our sister, Julie Chavez Rodriguez.
Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. I'm losing track of time while we're here in Chicago, but just thank you all so much. I just wanted to swing by to say thank you, thank you, thank you. It is always great to be amongst my brothers and sisters from labor, and I know what an incredible, incredible amount of work we've been able to get done together over the last several years. And we know how critical this election is. I don't have to tell you all twice what is at stake right now. I know you've heard it from so many speakers throughout the day. You've heard it from the convention stage. You'll hear Governor Walz again tonight. But we know that we are in a critical fight, a fight for our lives. And when I'm in the fight for my life, you know who I want to be in solidarity with labor, because you all know how to organize. You know how to get things done. And, you know, at this stage in our campaign, as the chair mentioned, and thank you so much, Chair Applebaum, for that warm introduction, but, you know, I know a thing or two about organizing. I had a master class being able to sit alongside my grandfather in House meetings or in the fields of California or in front of the supermarket. I know what it takes to be able to reach people, to reach workers, to reach the voters that we need to reach in this election. And that's exactly what we've been building for. You know, since day one of our campaign, you know, we have been building an organization with real grassroots power and energy in all of our battleground states. We have over 277 campaign offices open in states in, you know, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and of course Nebraska too, because we know that we have multiple pathways to reach 270, but we need to make sure that we're doing the hard work, we're knocking the doors, we're getting the volunteers out, we're making the phone calls, sending the text messages, because we know this election's going to be close. In 2020, we only won by 45,000 votes when it came down to the margin of victory in the battleground states that we needed to get to 270. Now you break that down. You all are organizers, you know. You break down those 45,000 votes by precinct, by, you know, by block, by walk packet, by volunteer. We can do this. We know how to do this. We know how to mobilize. We know how to energize. We know how to organize. So that's what is making me so excited and hopeful in this moment. We're seeing these big rallies. I know it's getting under someone's skin. And we're going to continue to grow that energy, but those rallies alone are not going to get us the victory in November. It's turning those rallies into action, and that's where we know we have the incredible opportunity to be able to partner with labor. You all are some of the most trusted institutions in our country right now, and it warms my heart to see that Union Strong is continuing to grow, and that's really where we need you all. We need you to do your member-to-member campaigns, your labor walks, you know, the incredible canvassing that you guys always generate. And if you're not in a battleground state, we'll have, you know, opportunities to do surge state programs and sister state programs so that no one, you know, will be denied the opportunity to get involved and to volunteer and to get engaged with our campaign. And so just thank you all so much for the incredible work that you've already done to date. I'm looking forward to the next 76 days, I think we're now till Election Day. And we're just going to continue to keep up the momentum and to make sure that we win big in November, because we know, again, that's what our families deserve. It's what our unions deserve. It's what our, you know, children and future generations deserve, is to continue the kind of incredible impact that we've been able to do together. So, you know, the Vice President tells us all that when we fight, we win, and I am so excited to be in the fight with you all. So maybe we can end with a good, you know, farm worker hand clap. So thank you all so much for your time. Sí se puede.
Wonderful. Ken Martin wears a lot of hats. He has a lot of titles. He is the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. He is the president of the Association of all the state Democratic committees. He is a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. And his unofficial title is perhaps the most important one for us today, and that is he has been a close confidant and a key architect of Governor Tim Walz's career. We also are so proud to have Ken with us because he understands the importance of labor and how we need to work together with the state parties to make sure labor's voice is heard within the parties and that state Democratic parties are full partners of labor in every state. Our friend, our ally, my great friend, Ken Martin.
Hey, Ken, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Is labor in the house? There we go. Say, let's give it up for Stuart Applebaum and Roxanne Brown. They're doing great work here. I am Ken Martin from the great state of Minnesota, where we are the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Yes, we have labor in our state name, right, Lee Cutler? You know that. Listen, we are the 6th largest union state in the country. You may not know that about Minnesota, but we live our values, our union values, each and every day in the great state of Minnesota. You know, my old mentor and friend in politics was Paul Wellstone. Many of you knew Paul, who is a great friend of labor. And Paul used to say that we all do better when we all do better. And the all matters. The all matters. We're fighting for every single person. And each of you in this room are not just fighting for your union members. You're fighting for every worker so they have a right to become a member of a union. And we thank you for everything you do to lift up workers' voices in addition to your union. Now, Tim Walz's motto is One Minnesota. What does that mean? It's just a simple premise that no matter where you're from, no matter where you live, no matter who you love, no matter your socioeconomic background, that everyone deserves a champion, that no one should be forgotten, that no one should be left behind. You see, when we think about this now with the Harris-Walz agenda, this opportunity agenda, what does that mean? It means that we make sure that people can not just survive, but they can thrive. It means making sure that people can get ahead and not just get by. And all of you in this room know a little bit about that, because that's the work you're engaged in each and every day. Making sure that workers know that they can retire with dignity, that they can be paid a living wage, that they can go to work and organize and collectively bargain together. That's what you're fighting for. That's the hope you're giving to workers throughout this country. But let me tell you a little bit about Tim Walz, who I've known for 20 years. Because his ethos is not just one Minnesota. His ethos is also about making sure that we use power when we have it to make the biggest difference for as many people as we can. We had a one-seat majority in our legislature. One-seat majority, and I want to list off a few of the things that Governor Walz was able to do with our legislative leaders, because they believed that you should not bank political capital. What good is political capital or political power if you sit on it? Let's use it to make a difference. Let's use it to improve people's lives. Let's use it to lift up workers. Let's use it to lift up communities throughout our state and country. Because of Governor Walz in Minnesota, we passed the largest paid family and medical leave act in the country, which gives people up to 20 weeks of paid leave to take care of a sick one. We banned non-competes in the state of Minnesota. We banned captive audience meetings in the state of Minnesota. We passed the largest investment in our K-12 education system, and we passed the largest bonding bill putting workers to work throughout our state. That's what you do when you have power. You use it. You use it to make a difference. You use it to lift up people's voices, and you use it to build the unions and to build the middle class in our state. That's Governor Walz. And let me say, as someone who's known him a long time, I will tell you, he's just as authentic as he seems. He's more comfortable in a camo hat and a T-shirt than he is in a suit. He's more comfortable in a fishing boat than he is in the halls of the Capitol. And let me tell you, he's more comfortable on a picket line with union members than he is negotiating across the table from the rich and the powerful who are trying to screw workers. I can tell you that much. That's our governor, Tim Walz. So let me just end with this. We've got 76 days left, folks. Keep your foot on the gas. Let's run like we're 20 points behind, even if we're 20 points ahead. If we do that, if we're willing to work for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, we will win on November 5th, and we will continue to build this country the right way. Thank you so much, everybody.
I'm going to suggest that everyone in the back of the room move up for our next speaker. I think you're going to want to, because Shawn Fain is incredible. Well, I don't need to say much. You saw him yourselves. You know he's not afraid to stand up to rich union-busting blowhards like Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And you know he's not afraid to call a scab a scab. When he spoke out in the UAW strike, he spoke out not just for his own members, but for every working person in this country. And his victory made a difference for all of us. I couldn't be prouder to have our brother here today with us. Shawn, thank you for being here, and more importantly, thank you for your voice and all that you are doing for the American labor movement and for working people everywhere.
All right. It's a good way to start the meeting. You can see it right here. But no, I want to thank Chairman Applebaum, just a great leader. I thank him for inviting us and, for his leadership. And, thank you all. This is what happens when labor comes together. I mean, together we move mountains. We've been moving mountains in this last year and a half, and we got a lot more to move. We all know it's the working class that's making a difference right now in this movement, in this election, and that's who's going to win this election. You know, there's a time, going back to this, I spoke about this morning a little bit, but, you know, there was a time when every union member and every working class person in this country voted Democrat because Democrats stood for everything we stood for. And, you know, somewhere along the way, I believe after the Reagan years and Bush won, you know, it just seemed like we started going more toward the center and courting big business and, you know, trying to play both sides and to make everybody happy, and that doesn't work. You know, so it's been amazing to be part of this journey with Stuart and a lot of other leaders, and you know, a lot of other labor leaders that are in this room right now, and all of you. This is, you know, we're helping the party find its way back to its roots, and you know, in our way back to it, it's a moral clarity of standing with working class people. That's the fight. You know, this is our moment, and it boils down to the same one question I've talked about every time I speak: which side are you on? And it's a very clear picture. There's two sides in this fight. You're either with the billionaire class, the corporate class, and that only serves themselves and doesn't give a damn about working class people, or you're with the working class who believe in helping one another, lifting each other up, and standing together in unity. You know, there's a very clear picture here. You know, we've seen it already. We've seen it just in the last 5 years or so. You know, President Biden stood on the picket line. First time in our nation's history a sitting president stood on a picket line with striking workers. Yeah. We saw it with Vice President Harris. I mean, 2019, GM workers were on strike for 40 days. Kamala Harris was standing shoulder to shoulder with workers on a picket line while Donald Trump did nothing and said nothing. Vice President candidate coming up here, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota, was on the picket line in our stand-up strike last year. Look at what they've done, the Biden-Harris administration, with the CHIPS Act, with the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, they're creating thousands of jobs in this country, something Trump talks about again but doesn't deliver on. They've done it. They've delivered. They talk about creating jobs, and they delivered on creating jobs. There is literally over 30 battery plants being built in this country or planned to be built on top of the supply chain sector for that. You know, and you look at, you know, with the CHIPS Act, same thing. That's why the UAW launched our biggest political program in our history and why we're in the midst of this now, because we cannot afford to go backwards. You know, and Barack Obama had a great statement last night, you know, when he said, you know, in those words, I mean, that we've seen this movie before, and we all know the sequel is always worse. And the last thing we need is to go backwards in this fight. You know, and just yesterday, Trump the Scab was in Michigan and basically making statements about, you know, people in America right now, they're walking across the street and they're getting shot and they're getting raped, and painting this picture of how crime is just rampant. And he doesn't talk about the fact that crime's been reduced since Biden-Harris administration has been in place, and it was very high under Donald Trump. He leaves that part out. He also said that law enforcement is on his side because he believes in law enforcement. But he sure as hell don't believe in law enforcement when it applies to him. You know, and he took care of that with his Supreme Court deciding that the law doesn't apply to him. And that's what this fight's about. You know, there's a standard for the wealthy in this country, and there's a standard for everybody else. And that's the America Donald Trump wants. He wants to make that chasm between the rich and poor grow even more. We got 3 families in America that have as much wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans. That's inexcusable, and that's a crisis. And, you know, this is what they do. The Republican Party, the wealthy, they seize on fear, uncertainty, and division. And that's how they win. They divide us. They try to divide us. They try to divide us by race. They try to divide us by who somebody loves. They villainize destitute and desperate people trying to cross a border. They do this for one reason. They want to dehumanize people, and they want working class people pointing the finger at each other for the blame for all the misery we're going through right now, rather than pointing at where it belongs, on corporate greed run wild. You know, this party's got a bad habit, the Republican Party, of holding up their Bibles and wrapping a flag around themselves and claiming they're the Patriot Party and all the other dumb shit they say. And, you know, we need to stop letting a political party hijack religion in this country. You look at everything that they talk about in their policy, everything in their platform, it doesn't talk about anything to do with what Scripture says, no matter what religion somebody is. You know, I don't know what religion anyone in this room is, and it doesn't really matter. Whatever religion you are, if you don't have religion, at the end of the day, every religion I know of is founded in the principle of love of your fellow human being. So you can't stand up here on a podium and call destitute and desperate people trying to find a better life rapists and murderers and invaders, and then hold a Bible up in your other hand. Sorry, but that don't work. And I don't buy what you're selling. You know, and you know, in the UAW, I've talked about this for years. You know, it's my favorite Bible verse, but Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, where it says, two are better than one, for they have a greater return for their labor. If one of them falls down, the other can pick them up. But pity the person who falls and has no one there to pick them up. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. That's what solidarity is. That's what unity is. And that's our path to victory, is when we stand together, we will not lose. When working class people, union and non-union, join together, we will win every time. You know, we're on the right side of this fight. We believe in unity, not division. And when we stand in solidarity, we will win every battle we face. And I know this, working class people in this country, union or not, they're fed up. They're fed up with being lied to. They're fed up with people trying to divide this nation. And that is the beauty of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's campaign and the Democrat Party platform right now is we're preaching unity, we're preaching coming together, and Donald Trump is just sowing division every time he speaks. And the thing is, in this whole fight, you know, talking about unity and solidarity, it's working class people and it's organized labor that leads the way in this fight. That's our obligation to humanity, to lead that fight. And that's our path to victory. You know, I talked yesterday, you know, or a couple of days ago, whenever it was, but, you know, I talked about one of my favorite American poets, Nellie, and I got another one that's homegrown in the state of Michigan named Marshall Mathers, or most people know him as Eminem. And, you know, when I ran for president, there was a song by him called Not Afraid. That was kind of my theme song as I would speak every time, or I would get ready for a rally or whatever. That's a song I would play, and I still do it now a lot of times before I speak. And, you know, there's the chorus of that song, you know, it's I'm not afraid to take a stand. Everybody come take my hand. We'll walk this world together through the storm, whatever weather comes along. I'm letting you know that you're not alone. Holler if you feel you've been down the same road. And I mean, that is a working class plight. That is our path. I mean, we've all seen tough times. We all know what it is to live paycheck to paycheck. And that's who moves this country. And the politicians and the leaders of this country that understand that and focus on that, and they focus their agenda on that, they'll win by massive landslides every time they run if that's the focus. But when we get sidetracked, we start focusing on corporate greed, we start considering a corporation to have the same rights as a human being. You know, the party that claims to be the party for life, I mean, they claim that a corporation has the same rights as a human. It doesn't. A corporation is not a human. You know, and so that's how we're going to win this. We stand united. We stand together, you know, in solidarity. We have to stand up. We have to speak up and show up and deliver in a big way. So, you know, the UAW is excited as hell to be in this fight with all of you. And, you know, I know I don't even have to ask this question, but I know you're all ready to stand up, speak up, and show up for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So let's get to it and let's win this thing. Thank you. Yeah, you bet.